Marc.
Gracias, thank you. Gracias, Carlos. I would also, buenos días a todos. And that's as far as it goes. English, Spanish, Espanol. I want to start by thanking Ricardo Flores, the director of the show, for inviting my company to speak and share with you our thoughts, our knowledge, our expertise on retail. And his staff has been phenomenal to work with. Anna and Monica and Victor and Carlos have been just wonderful, so they deserve a round of applause. We have the opportunity to participate in trade shows around the world, and this is certainly a first-class trade show, and we're just honored to be here. And again, thank you very much. I also want to introduce Paul Erickson, who's in the back, who spoke this morning. Paul's the director of sales for Management One, and he goes around the world speaking on our behalf. And I came down to join him this time. I usually don't make appearances, but today I'm here. I also want to introduce the co-founder of the company, Evan Weiss, if he could stand up. And a few housekeeping notes before we begin. The presentation that we're delivering today, you can pick up by going to M1, the number 1, talks, talks.com, and we'll send you a presentation if you're interested. Following the presentation today, Paul and myself and Evan will be available to answer any questions that are specific to you in your store if you have any, or your business, and we're happy to answer those. Evan and I will also be here through Friday, and we're glad to set an appointment and meet with you to answer any other questions or follow-up questions. A little bit about me. Who is this guy up here from America? Ricardo was at a big trade show in Las Vegas where we deliver a number of presentations and invited us to come down, and we're, again, very appreciative of that opportunity. I started my life in retail. I was really born into it. My great-grandfather was a coat designer. My grandfather made dresses, and my dad owned stores in Cleveland, Ohio. And so I kind of grew up in the business and firsthand learned about the challenges of change that independent retailers face, learned about the struggles to create cash, raise a family, pay the bills, deal with external forces that you have no control over. So I got to witness that and be a part of those conversations at lunch and dinner and breakfast, and it seemed like it was a 24/7 job. And quite frankly, I hated retail. And because my parents just worked all the time and really did have to sweat all the small stuff with people and inventory and everything else. And then one day when I got home from college during Christmas break, Evan and I really were heading off to Florida, and my dad said, "No, you're not. You're going to help in the store. I need your help." So I went to the store and had to run it, and found out what Paul said this morning, that I fell in love with retail that day because I found out that if I screwed up on Monday, I could fix it on Tuesday. And that was a wonderful feeling. I stayed in the family business, and it offered a great opportunity for me, but I decided that it was time for me to move on, increase my education, and went to work for a chain. And one of the great lessons that I learned in working for a chain, they had 600 and some stores, was I was there when they implemented point-of-sale systems, and I saw the company business just explode when they had information the next day and they could act on it. And it was an awakening for me because I began to realize, if you know what the customers are doing, you can react and make changes and decide and do things differently. And it really did have quite an impact. Our average volume store went from 600,000 per unit to 1.1 million. That's a huge increase, and that was back in the early 80s. So I kind of hung around there and learned my lessons, and so I had opportunity to work for a family business, open stores, negotiate leases, get to go to the market and buy every 4 weeks. So it was a great job when you were young. I got an opportunity to run the entire southeastern United States for a big chain, learned a lot of lessons there, worked for a consulting firm for a period of time, and that was great too. And then in 1992, this probably predates most all of you from what I can tell, except maybe you, Carlos, and me, there was a fellow by the name of Ross Perot who was running for president of the United States. And he somebody was interviewing him and asked him what changed his life. And Ross said, most men live lives in quiet desperation. And when I heard him echo those words, it changed my life forever. Because it was at that moment in my life that I realized what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And that was create financial security for independent retailers. It's something that we do. It's something that I've given my life to outside of my family, to figure out how we can work with retailers so that they can be successful and they don't live lives of quiet desperation, so that they have the cash creating out of their businesses so they can do and live the lives they want to live and not struggle and worry the way I saw my parents their whole lives. So that's a little bit about me. It's a little bit about why I'm in the business I'm in and why we have built the business we're in, because it's not about us. It's about each and every one of you. I have a question for all of you. How many of you are just thinking about opening a store or a business? Okay. How many of you have been in business for over a year? How many of you have been in business for over 5 years? Congratulations. Anybody that's been in business over 5 years has broken the first major hurdle. How many of you have been in business over 10 years? All right, these people really deserve a round of applause. And that's what you want to aspire to, and you want to aspire to be able to build and grow. So this is the only paper I'm going to have in front of me because I don't want to misquote this. This came from an interview I read that I just thought which I really thought was appropriate, especially for today. It's by Doug Stevens, who's another retail guru. And he says, either sell something no one else sells, which is increasingly difficult in a globalized economy. I mean, you all have access to all the same merchandise here, right? Or sell what you sell in a way that no one else does. Sell what you sell in a way that no one else does. And what we're going to talk about today is how you do that. How do I sell what everyone else may be selling and do it differently? Now, I have the beauty, the honor, the benefit, the blessing, really, of having the opportunity to look at more retail data than just about anybody else. Independent specialty retail data. And when I look at that data, I look for trends, but I don't look for trends just in denim is selling better than pants, or knit tops are selling better than blouses, or men's sweaters are selling better than hoodies, which was actually the reverse. But I'm looking beneath the surface of what's really driving change in retail. And to the extent that you can understand what the customer thinks about and what drives their decisions, that opens the door for you to build and design your business to do the same thing. Whether you're a small company or a large chain, it doesn't matter. There has never, ever been, in my lifetime, a better time to be in retail, especially as an independent retailer, because the playing field has changed. It's changed because of technology and the access that you have to technology and creativity that has never, ever, ever existed. And that's the door that's open to you today, to each and every one of you. So we're going to talk about these things. I'm going to tell you what I see and how I understand it. I'm here to answer your questions for a little bit, time provided afterwards, and then again, any time you want to talk in the next 2 days. So they're English side for me, Spanish side for probably all of you. So if you can't read English and or don't understand it, then if you can look this way, that would be great. The headline was that there's three trends that are driving retail today, and that's true. Speed, convenience, and scarcity. But there's two overarching trends that are changing everything, and that's machine learning and organic intelligence. And I'm going to talk a little bit about each of those. Okay, the current is so strong it cannot be denied. Oops. Okay. The current is so strong it can't be denied. If you get in a rip curl or a rip tide, you can't get out from under. You cannot fight the trends that are happening in the world today. It's not just about what happens in the United States. We live in a global economy. It's what happens everywhere, and we have to pay attention to those. If you think that you can buck it, you will not be in business 5 years from now. And the people who have been in business for 5 or 10 or more years, they get it because they've adopted and changed. Excuse me. Let's first talk about artificial intelligence. And I think the best way to explain it is, if you start with one store and you're pretty successful, and then you open a second store, you now have data from 2 different stores. If you open 3 stores, you now have data from 3 stores. So you know a lot more about your business with 3 stores than you knew with 1 store, and so forth. Well, machine learning is taking hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of pieces of information and looking at it and learning the same way you would do if you had more than 1 store. And it puts all that information together, and it tells you a lot more. So machine learning is no more than taking advantage of a tremendous wealth of information out there. Now, I'm not going to talk we lost part of it. I hope that wasn't me. I'm not going to talk in detail about it, but there was and this was revolutionary. There was a book. There was a publication in 1972 that was written by Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman about the belief in small numbers and how it's false. And then Michael Lewis wrote a book called The Undoing Project, which I would highly recommend you read. And he talks about how the belief in small numbers gets you to be making decisions about things that you believe are right based on limited information, only to find out that 47% of the time you're wrong. So machine learning gives you access to greater information, the same way that retail chain I work for went from what happened in 1 store to what happened in 600 stores. Things changed overnight. We use machine learning in our processes, so our 1 store gets the benefit of all the billions of pieces of information we're collecting every day. So artificial intelligence is important because it's already driving marketing decisions, it's already driving merchandising decisions, and retailers, especially the big box retailers, are using it in new and unbelievable ways, which you can read plenty of articles about. And you might ask yourself, well, I'm a small retailer. How do I use it? And we'll get to that. It's important that you understand what's happening in the marketplace. Organic intelligence, what do you think organic intelligence is? It's about people. We'll wait on that one. It's about people. Organic intelligence is about investing in people. It's about the human factor. So the robots aren't going to rule the world. And why would somebody go into your store to shop? Why is he looking at me? They're going in your store to shop because they want to shop with you. They want to be with people. So there's a big movement in the United States among the big stores, not only to invest in artificial intelligence to help make better decisions, but also to invest in organic intelligence, reinvest in their people. So one of the great champions of process control, who really may help make Japan a leader in products and quality, is a fellow by the name of Dr. William Edwards Deming. And I just love this quote of his, "In God we trust, all others must bring data." So it's a great comment about you are either going to be making decisions in your business that are data-based, or you're going to be making decisions based on your gut and a hunch, which means you will be right 53% of the time and wrong 47% of the time. So data is critical to making decisions. The benefit with machine learning, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but it's better predicting customer demand, it's investing in best-selling categories, it's increasing sales and improving margins, it's using information in ways that haven't been used before. And it's also being tested to be used in developing and building out better products, which is what major companies use today. They're investing in, these are the SKUs this gentleman likes to buy. He's just like these 4 people and not like these 10 people. And it helps define and helps mitigate risk. It helps reduce the risk that you as a business owner have to take. As a small business person, you have to take risks every day. How am I going to spend my money? What am I going to invest in? You're always juggling those questions in your mind. So to the extent that you can use information to help you make better decisions, so you know what your return on investment is on every decision you make, machine learning will offer that. And as it becomes more publicly acceptable and more publicly available, the cost driving that will enter into your world. And it will be available to you. You have to be open to be available to it. There isn't some retail god because you own a store that has a pipe of information that goes into your brain that you have privy to. What really happens is there's a lot of things happening all the time. And to the extent that you can get into that information to not only understand what's happening in your business, but understanding what's happening in businesses like yours is going to change your ability to compete. 3 words I want you to think about. Capture, market, share. Capture, market, share. What I'm going over with you today is going to allow you to capture market share. Why is capturing market share so important? Because the world's economy isn't growing, maybe 1 or 2% a year. So the best way to build your business is to beat your competitor at their own game. Remember, this means that you sell what you sell in a way no one else does. We have a client in Edmonton, Canada. Edmonton, Canada has been just devastated by the oil business. It's all the entire province of Canada is built on oil, and oil has just gone down, and it's really destabilized that economy. So we have a fellow there, Brad Layton, and Brad decided that his competitors could go out of business, but he was going to reinvent himself in his store. Brad now owns 3 stores and 80% of the market share for women's products in Edmonton, Canada. While everybody else felt sorry for them and sorry for themselves and blamed the economy, Brad decided to do something about it. He decided to reinvent himself. He decided to be innovative. He decided to take risks. He decided to do something that nobody else was willing to do. But he uses information to do it. And that's the difference. He invested in information so that he could make better decisions. So I just want to talk about that as I introduce the idea of organic intelligence. One of the things that Brad did, and I think he's a good example of a small retailer who did this. And oh, by the way, just a little bit about Brad. He didn't even want to be in the women's business. His wife wanted to open up a store. So he took all his money, opened up a store, had no desire to do it, was out front drinking wine every day out of a Solo cup because he wasn't really interested in being in business. And then his wife served him with papers and decided to divorce him. So now he's invested his whole life in this store. And he, instead of feeling sorry for himself, he really began, the first thing he did was invest in information from us, but the other thing that he did is he invested in people. And what you're seeing today are the big stores reinvesting in people, not necessarily with the government having to raise the minimum wage, but by companies doing it on their own. Organic intelligence, or the time that you spend investing in your people, is critical. Walmart is a good example. They voluntarily increased wages. They added $2.5 billion to their payroll. And here's what they got in return. Decreased turnover of people. Well, what does that do? Less training. More people understanding and knowing their jobs. Enabled their employees to purchase more from Walmart, so they got more income back. Gave employees a career track and improved morale, which in turn improved productivity. The number one way to improve profit is to improve productivity, which means you measure everything. If you can't measure it, you can't improve it. If you can't measure it, it's not a problem, it's an excuse. So if you want to improve productivity, you have to measure information and you have to measure data. So organic intelligence is critical. So I've talked about machine learning and artificial intelligence. I've talked about people and in the investment in people. You could go to seminars and learn everything you want about that. You can hear other people talk about ways they recruit and compensate and pay and motivate people. Those are all discussions. Maybe we'll actually have one at some point in the future. These are things that you need to think about. But your takeaway from here today is going to be, and the challenge that I'm going to give you again at the end, is to take one idea and think about it and implement it in 2020 in your business. Just one. You don't have to do everything. You just have to pick on one or two things and really focus on it and make it happen. And you'll see a change in your business. There's three trends. There's speed, there's convenience, and there's scarcity. And I'm going to talk a little bit about all of them and why they impact your business. The first is speed. This morning, those of you that got to witness Paul's presentation, he talked about inventory rotation and turnover, stock inventory rotation and turnover. And he talked about if you have a slow turn, you have a lot of dollars tied up in inventory. The less time you have dollars tied up in inventory, not only does it free up cash, but it allows you to do what? It allows you to capture market share. Why does it allow you to capture market share? Because customers are hungry for new goods. Let's see if I can find my phone here. I'm really impressed. I only see one person texting on their phone. So, just kidding. Okay, so what's happened? We feed off of this. What's the advantage to specialty retailers because of this? What's the advantage? What's this done? It's made people want to shop all the time, 24/7. So their hunger for newness is at an all-time high. And you also know that if they don't like it right away, it's probably not going to sell, and you need to mark it down and get out of it, as Paul talked about, and move on to the next thing. But this has opened a whole door for both convenience and scarcity, which I'll talk about later. So speed is important. People are hungry. Paul mentioned it this morning. Zara built it. Zara was a small retailer in Spain. It opened in 1975. So if you think you're just a small retailer today, they are now the largest independent retailer in the world, doing $30 billion and have 7,400 stores, all focused on speed. And Paul mentioned it this morning. Paul mentioned that the average customer shops in Zara 17 times a year. The average customer shops in a store in the United States at least 4 times a year. So speed and inventory rotation are important. Getting in and out of fashion is important because the customers are hungry for what's new. Their appetite is at an all-time high. Fast fashion has changed the industry. Fast fashion meaning the best things get knocked off the runways in Paris and Milan. They're out on the streets in 2 to 3 weeks, and things happen very fast. So fast fashion has changed the way people think about business and the way they shop and the way they buy. It's also increased the frequency. So if you're a slow-turning store and you only have inventory that you replace 2 or 3 times a year, the customers are bored after their first visit. And what you want to do? You want to increase their visits. So speed is critical. So you want to think about speed in every part of your business, not only in how fast you turn over, but also the speed with which you get your goods from market into the store. The speed, if you're a chain, how long does it take you to get it from the warehouse into your locations? How fast do you transact? How fast do your transactions happen? Think about every process in your business and think about how I can speed it up, because speed opens up the door to convenience. There was a study today, and it may not be as applicable here as it is in the United States, but it will be, and that is 93% of Americans will spend more money for convenience. They're not interested in the best price, they're interested in convenience. So how many of you are familiar with Ship T or Click, where you can buy something online and pick it up at the store? So it's a matter of using speed and convenience at the same time. It's a way of creating a better relationship with your customer because you're fulfilling a need that they have, and that need is convenience. One of the things that I did in one of our stores in San Francisco is I sat down, I had a store meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I said, we're going to talk about one thing and one thing only. How can we improve the convenience that we deliver to our customers? And then I heard, well, we already do this, and we already do that, and we take care of the customers, and we call them, and all the things that are just normal. I said, well, they expect that. What don't they expect? And we sat there and brainstormed a list of things that they could do to make the shopping experience more convenient for their customers. And one of those was just to call all their customers or invite them in and have a discussion. What can we do to make your shopping experience more convenient? If you can add speed and convenience into your customer's journey with you, you will build a stronger relationship with your customers. They will give you more referrals, and you will be their first point when they want to shop. So convenience also means understanding the demographics and psychographics of your customers. The psychographics meaning the type of people, their attitudes, their aspirations. There's different ways of looking at that. You can run surveys. You can talk to your people about what your customers do. But and I would actually take psychographics and take it to another level. And that would be, what are the aspirations of my customers? What are their needs? What are their securities? What are the things that make them feel comfortable? We have a client on the border in Calexico, on the border of Mexico, and 80% of their business is Mexican nationals crossing the border. He's got great product. He's got great items. Do you know why he has so much customer loyalty? He provides house charges for all of his clients. Nobody in Calexico can compete with him. And his default rate is under 1%. Do you know why? Because they know how to vet their customers. And you want to know something else? He's the only merchant in the United States on the border that shows that he trusts his customers. And that pays off in dividends. I thought it was brilliant. I said to Robert, you're really not in the retail business, you're really in the finance business. And he says to me, Mark, sometimes I feel bad. They'll pay their bill to us before they'll buy something they really need, because we've supported them for over 25 years and they support us in return. So economies and inflation and border crossings never seem to affect his business because his customers are loyal to him. He provides a convenience for them that they can't get anywhere else. And a matter of fact, having a charge at his store is a matter of pride and honor, to the people that are customers of his. And so can you imagine, they do all the advertising for him. So we've talked about speed, we've talked about convenience. We're going to talk a little bit about scarcity. So one of the things that really drives, and does anyone here know what FOMO means? What is it? Okay, can you stand up? Go ahead, shout it to the roof. And what does that mean? Right, now in Spanish. Thank you. Gracias. Okay, so fear of missing out. So the people who have really capitalized on FOMO are who? Nike and Adidas. How many of you are familiar with their drops and their launches? On Saturday mornings, they drop and launch special shoes worldwide that only 60 retailers in the world get. And they've made it so scarce to get those shoes that people bid for those shoes, sometimes 50, sometimes 100% over retail. So you can take that example of scarcity and you can also have it in your own store. If you overbuy, you're not creating scarcity. If it's always in your store, if you think you need big selections, you're sadly wrong. Most stores are over assorted. You're supposed to do the picking for the customer. FOMO, customers want and will pay top dollar for merchandise that they think other people can't get. Zara does it all the time. They turn their inventory every 6 weeks. If you don't go in and buy it, you don't get it. Well, don't you think that decreases their markdowns? Because the customer is hungry for their goods. Scarcity is about making the customer hungry. Okay. I'm doing this slowly. Oh, wrong button. Okay. I talked about Zara. Speed matters. And I've talked about this. When you bring goods into market and you bring them in fast and you get out of them fast and you can create velocity in your inventory, good things start to happen. And we've seen this happen over and over and over again. By the way, I talk about big box stores because everybody's pretty familiar with them. But the same concepts I'm talking about here are the same concepts we employ and invest in our clients. And our clients do anywhere from $250,000 a year to $100 million. We have, and even though we're heavily weighted in North America, we have stores in Latin America. We do the Michael Kors and Ralph Lauren stores in Latin America. We also do small stores in Guatemala and other places, Costa Rica, and I don't know where all the places we do business, but I think we're in 11 Latin American countries today. Whether they're mono brands or they're small mom and pops, we employ a lot of the same kinds of ideas, and we're always trying to build speed into the delivery of product because the customers want what's fresh. They want what's new. Okay. Okay, in order to accomplish this, you've got to collect data. It has to be daily. It has to be useful, and then you chase. How many of you go to market twice a year? How many of you go to market 3 times a year? 4 times a year? 6 times a year? Well, you're all here once, that's for sure. So I mean trade shows or markets. You should always be buying. You should always be looking for what's next. You should always be moving your customer forward. If you collect data, you can do that because then you can chase. Because we're in the business of chasing business. Data allows you to fail fast. Does anyone know what fail fast means? Well, fail fast is a concept that's been adopted by the most innovative retailers in the world. Something we use in our own company. Fail fast means you have data available to you all the time so that as you take risks to build and grow your business, you have the data to make decisions when you fail to move on and get out of it so you don't get stuck in stuff that you don't need to be stuck in. You don't want to be stuck in quicksand. So fail fast gives every business an opportunity to take the risks they need to take. You are in the business to take risks. Data allows you to mitigate those risks so that you don't repeat them and that you get out of them and move on from your mistakes. It's okay to fail. If you do everything right, you're failing already. One of the great lessons I learned was from Evan, my co-founder of Management One, and he also he grew up in retail, but he also ran research and development for the largest paper and packaging company in the world, and he had to deal with a bunch of PhDs. And one PhD that he was working with on his research, Evan didn't give him a good review. And what was his name? We went to the ball game with him. HP said, "But Evan, I got 100% of my projects done and they were all successful." And Evan said, "Well, that's the problem. They were all successful. You didn't take enough risk. You didn't try hard. You did what was safe." If you believe that you can build your business on being safe, you will be out of business shortly. The only way, trust me, the only way to go beyond that is to collect data, understand when you've made a mistake, get out of it, and move on. That's it. So fail fast has become the cornerstone by which first adopter retailers have built and grown their businesses. These are the people that I know that were selling shoes out of the back of their cars 6 years ago that are running $15 and $20 million successful retail stores 7 or 8 years later, because they adopted the concept of fail fast. You've got to make mistakes fast and get out of them. So I'm kind of going on this because I believe it's that important of a concept to adopt in your business. Listen, you're all business owners or buyers. You're decision makers. It's your responsibility to have a leadership role and decide the future of your business. How you decide that future is also dependent on the tactics and strategies you employ. If you employ one strategy this year, it should be, how do I get the data I need out of my business so I can fail fast and make decisions to capture the market share, to knock out my competitors so I'm around in 5 or 10 years and they're not. I probably said that too fast for the translators, and I can't repeat it. Okay. Let's see, I'm getting myself... Okay, I said this before, customers shop 24/7, speed in getting, if you do alterations, the speed in getting those back, speed in transactions, speed in getting new goods on the floor, speed in relieving your stock of underperforming inventory, and replacing it with product that sells. If you just did those things, that would make a difference in your business. Convenience matters. You have to kill all the barriers to your customer. One of those is outdated return policies. You hold the customer hostage because they return something, they're afraid to come in your store and return it. One of our clients, she's been in business for, 16 or 17 years. She started as a little $250,000 business. She's doing about $9 million today in 3 locations. I said to her, why do you make returns so awful for your customers? How many people don't shop with you because you have a crummy return policy? I grew up with this. We didn't return it in 14 days, you didn't get your money back. All I did was sit and argue with people. All we did was get people mad. I thought we were supposed to make customers happy. Well, I talk about Maureen because she created, you can return anything you've ever bought from me if you're not happy with it. I've told this to other retailers and they've just shuddered. But she decided to make an event out of it and ended up having, in an off month, the biggest month she ever had in the history of her business. And the love affair her customers showed to her, and how they expressed that in the community put her at another level. What did she do? She took market share from her competition and knocked one of them out with just changing her return policy. Open access to you and your people. Don't put barriers. Don't put gatekeepers there. If you call me in my office, guess who's going to pick up the phone? I don't have a secretary. Marc Weiss picks up the phone. Because if it's important enough for you to call me, then it's important enough for me to hear what you have to say and answer your questions. So kill all the barriers. A lot of our clients now on their websites, when they want to reach, you can directly chat or you can directly make an appointment. There's a free appointment schedulers. By the way, there's tons of free apps that you can use to improve the technology in your business. A lot of our clients now have a scheduling app where they want to speak to Israel. And so they can just click on a button and make an appointment, and he knows that, and you can send him a message and say, glad you reached out to me, I look forward to seeing you, and whatever else you want to do. Train all your people on a consistent message so they can say yes and not no. How many times have you been involved in a situation where all you get is no, 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 no? And you say, I want to speak to the supervisor. Somebody's got to be able to help me. I know I'm right, but there's nobody to say yes. Don't worry about the little bit of profit that person may cost you, but train your people how to say yes or move them on to somebody else. They're not going to bankrupt your business. Empower your people with the authority to solve problems on the spot so you don't have to be dug into them. Training, training, training. There's a tremendous amount of great training available online for selling and for your people that's interactive, intuitive, and easy to do. And it's cost chump change. There's great stuff out there. I highly recommend you look for it and understand and recognize the value of a lifetime customer. When you turn off a customer, don't think about that one sale. Think about the lifetime value of the customer. The number one dollar per square foot grocery store in the world, I think, is Stu Leonard's somewhere in the northeastern United States. And Stu Leonard, I think he has 400 now, but started with 200 products and became the number one grocer in the world. Does like $200 million a year in one store because he recognized the lifetime value of the customer. He recognized that their customers shop 50 weeks a year. They spend X number of dollars in the store. They live in the community 10 years, multiplied that out, and found out the person coming in to buy those apples that day really spends $50,000 in their lifetime, and taught all his people to think about the lifetime value of the customer. That's why organic intelligence, investing in your people and training them, is time well invested and time well spent. And figuring out how your people can create a more convenient relationship with your customers will pay you big dividends. So I talked a little bit about, and it may not have hit here, but it will. Target, Nordstrom's, and Starbucks have all changed the stakes. You can, on your app, call ahead, get what you want. They come out, they deliver it right to your door. For Target, for example, their increase in sales in the third quarter of last year was because of their Ship-T program where people could buy ahead and you could wait in a place in a parking lot, let them know you're there, and they come out with the package. There's a downside to it. Starbucks found the average item per transaction in their store actually went down because people could come in and pick up their coffee and weren't picking up donuts and sandwiches and other things. Same-day delivery, easy returns, content messaging. Maybe if we come back in July, we'll talk about content messaging and how important Instagram and social media is to you building your business. I used to say retail was about people and inventory. I now say retail is about people, inventory, and how well you message to your customers. And that is why I believe it's never been a better time for independent retailers in the history of retail in the last 40 years, rather than the history, but at least the last 40 years, because you can access and get to your customers as fast and as quick as anyone. And you have a relationship to build on. I mean, why are Bonobos and Warby Parker and all the companies that birthed on the internet opening stores? Because they know they can't build the same relationship on the internet as they can in a store. And they're bringing that same speed and convenience and messaging into their stores, looking at their stores as another media platform as they did on the internet. And they're bringing that, so they're raising the stakes. But you're in a position to compete and take advantage of that. The information that you deliver and the messaging that you use on Instagram and other social media is a key and a fundamental part of your strategy to grow and build. By the way, those of you that are thinking of opening up e-commerce businesses, we should talk. What you really want, is Instagram a big deal down here? Okay. Instagram is where our stores are doing their e-commerce. And it's not an insignificant amount of money. It's huge. And to the extent that you can build your Instagram business and your Instagram following business can reap huge dividends and rewards for you. And that's also part of convenience. Don't let the e-commerce and big box retailers win a game you should own. I don't think that's as big as an issue here, but you remove all those barriers by listening to your customers, asking questions, messaging constantly to them, training them, innovating, and great processes. And for those of you that believe that you're harassing your customers by emailing them or messaging them once or twice a month, you're sadly mistaken. You are wrong, wrong, wrong. Frequency matters. Frequency matters. Frequency is what's important. Because they're constantly looking for what's new. I mean, just think about how social media has completely changed the dynamics and the culture of this world. It's unbelievable. And for you to believe in old thoughts about customers not wanting to be bothered, they want to be bothered more than ever before if you have a compelling message and something interesting to tell them. And if you don't have an interesting message and something compelling to tell them, go find something else to do and bore somebody else. You're in the retail business. You're in the business of theater. You're in the business of experience. You're in the business of having customers have fun. You're in the business of having people feel better when they walk out of your store than when they walk in. Because what does that do? That makes them want to come back to you again and again and again and again. But you need people to do that. And you need data to measure it. So don't ever think for a minute that you can't change or alter the course of your business. Because whatever you did on Monday, you can do something different on Tuesday. So I'm not the best clicker in the world. So we talked about scarcity a little bit, and we're running out of time. And I do want to talk about scarcity because it is important and it is a growing movement. And that the brand is critical, even if you develop your own brand. Take risks to be the first, not the last, and develop exclusivity. With social media, you can do all of this. And you can do it at home. And if you're not creative, go find a high school or college kid that is. We have a customer in Charlotte, North Carolina. And Judy came to work one day, and there was a line out the door. And she said, "What the heck's going on? Was there a fire? What happened to my store?" Well, she hired a high school girl to take over her social media, and she created an event in the store. Didn't bother to tell the owner because she didn't know how successful it would be. She created a thing called the brown bag, which was an unbelievably creative thing. And all of a sudden, they didn't have enough inventory in the store to fill the orders for the demand, all through the use of social media. And by the way, no sale. It wasn't about a sale at all. It was about having an event. One of our clients has a taco truck in his parking lot on Tuesdays and has Taco Tuesdays. And it's $1. And they get hundreds of people. And they do thousands of dollars worth of business. So do things that think about you and your business as a brand, just as you want to bring important brands into your business. Also think about your store as a brand and how you message that, because you can wrap that up and you can make yourself important. And take the risk to be the first, not the last. Develop exclusivity. It's not about price. If you've got to run 25 or 50% off every week, you're doing something wrong. And 5 products that are unique. Now, this is kind of a complicated discussion, and I've got 4 minutes to go over a very complicated discussion. But it used to be long tail. This is where really Nike and Adidas really reclaimed this. And now there's other things that you can do in yourself. And this really opens the door for independent retailers. It used to be, if you didn't get the most popular products, you couldn't be in business. But now we've found you can do just as much business because the length of this equals the same volume as that. So the long tail strategy allows that businesses can do significant profit out of selling low volumes of hard-to-find items to many customers instead of only selling one large item or a few large items that are very popular to a lot of customers. So that's a really complicated thought. I don't have the time to go into it. I'm happy to share it in detail, but I can probably give you one example, and that would be customize something. So I suggest you all go on to Vans Global Customization and find out that you can download your own artwork or prints, and they'll have those shoes back to you in 5 weeks. But at the same time, you could hire a local artist and have a design your shoe day in your store and buy a bunch of blank shoes and let people be creative. That's an example of long tail. Can't find it anywhere else, creates exclusivity, and it's hard to find. We had another client that put a sewing machine and a seamstress in her window and bought a bunch of appliques that you put on clothes, and you could come in and pick out any applique you wanted, and the seamstress would sew it on while you waited, and while they were waiting, those people shopped. There's lots of things that you can do, and you'll be way more creative than I am to create customization. So, to wrap up, technology has brought retail into our lives 24/7. Buying habits have changed, creating opportunities that we are there to take advantage of. Technology has enhanced the trends of speed, convenience, and scarcity. I encourage you all to find ways to embrace any one of these. It doesn't have to be all of them. There's always a next level. If you want a copy of this presentation, you go to m1talks.com. Again, Evan and Paul and I are around to answer any questions. I'll be here till Friday. I really thank you for your patience. I hope you found this rewarding and interesting. I didn't try to put too much on you, but just take one idea away to make your business a better. Nobody knows it all. Nobody has it all. But what you can do is one thing tomorrow differently than you did today, and it'll make all the difference in the world. Thank you for your patience and time. Thank you for my English, and have a great day.